Hello everyone, Loremaster of Sotek here, and today is a very exciting day. Today is an extremely exciting day, because not only do we get a series of confirmations about the Shadows of Change DLC, we're finally here, we're finally in Shadows of Change build-up time, but they dropped it as essentially a book, as a Warhammer Fantasy lore thing, which I am extremely excited about. So we have a lot to talk about as far as what is in this article. It is a lore book essentially written by David Guymer. David Guymer is without a doubt one of my favorite Black Library authors. I actually had him on Lorebeards a few months ago now to talk about a couple of things, and now I really want to get him back. But it's super awesome to just be getting essentially a Black Library short story about Grand Cathay. This is the first one. Like, this is the first. And it's incredibly exciting. I'm going to pull it up on screen here so I can kind of talk about all the things that are in it. I have read through it. There are a couple of things that I think we should focus on as far as being very, very important to what's coming for the DLC, as well as just what's really important for the lore. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into Master of the Meteor Wind by David Guymer. If you want this book for yourself, it's free for everybody. It is in your CA or Total War account. You can just go on there and download it, and you'll be able to read through it. And it has some like absolutely gorgeous artwork. So we have some like really beautiful art of Yuan Bo showing off his incredible armor. I love the way he looks. He is so badass looking. Like, we get to see his dragon form. We get to see him. He's got like a giant fuck you sword, and he's got like a really fascinating set of armor that's really beautiful. Love his golden antlered helm. You also get him like sitting in his office. I feel like this is that Spider-Man meme of Spider-Man just sitting behind that office desk. I feel like this is the equivalent of that in Warhammer Fantasy, is Yuan Bo just sitting behind his desk. But he is associated with the wind of heaven, so he is associated with the elemental wind of stone. We also get a look at what assuming is one of his cities. So just lots and lots of beautiful artwork. We've got one of the Onyx Crowmen revealed, which they are super creepy looking because they have like human hands on the end of their wings, which like, ugh, very unsettling. And then, oh man, he's gorgeous. He's gorgeous. He looks so amazing. Oh my gosh, I love the way he looks. Now, as much as I would love to sit down and just do like a dramatic reading of this story, I'm not going to, because CA is kind of sort of asked the content creators not to just like read it verbatim, just to kind of focus on points that we think are particularly interesting. So if you want to go read it, do it on your own. I'm not going to be doing an audio drama reading. But I'm going to point out things that I do find genuinely interesting. So this story flat out reveals two of the legendary lords, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's undeniable that this confirms we have obviously Yuan Bo for Grand Cathay. So we've got the third of the dragon children put into the game. But it also reveals through the story, which, spoilers, if you have not read it yet, stop the video, hit pause, trust me, it's worth it. Stop the video, go read it. It's not even 20 pages. Like, I think it's like 18 or 19 pages of text. So it's not that long. It's an amazing read. Pause the video, go read it, come back, because I'm going to spoil the entire freaking thing for you if you don't. So, okay, assuming that you're here now, you have been warned about spoilers, and you have hopefully gone and read it and come back. So it's revealed that Yuan Bo goes up into the northern provinces because one of the cities is having a lot of issues, and it turns out he finds Miao Ying there, and it turns out it's not Miao Ying, it's the Changeling. So this confirms that the Changeling is going to be the legendary lord for Tzeentch. He is going to be the big showdown for the Tzeentch factions, and I could not be more excited. I could not be more excited because this confirms that he's going to be turning into other legendary lords. I don't know, obviously we don't know what the restrictions are going to be on it, but I assume just like the dragon children can transform from human form to dragon form, or how Malice Darkblade can transform from Malice form into demon Malice form, the Changeling is probably going to use a very similar mechanic, where he's going to be able to turn into other legendary lords. And I am so hyped for that. When I originally talked about Shadows of Change, I was very, very much of the opinion that the Changeling would not be as good of a legendary lord as the Blue Scribes, but kind of the longer I've had to sit on it, the more I've kind of shifted the other direction, where because the Blue Scribes have randomized spells, and a lot of their design is about randomness and unreliability, which is very Zinchian, but it also could be very, very frustrating for a character design as far as a lord goes. Like, I could see the Blue Scribes being a very good legendary hero, because having a character in your army who's able to just pump out random spells could be very, very beneficial. But if it's your general, that could actually add in some pretty complicated issues about like reliability and like solid builds and stuff like that. Whereas the Changeling demonstrably is able to be reliable. And it's also revealed in this story that he casts spells. So the Changeling is like throwing magic around. Him and Yuan Bo have a magic duel. And I have to say, this is such a phenomenal short story. It's amazing. I cannot express enough how much I need Creative Assembly to do more stuff like this, to call upon more Black Library authors to come narrate little stories about legendary lords encountering one another, because we don't really get that. We need more stories of these characters encountering and fighting one another, because it doesn't happen. In a lot of the Black Library stories and even the army books and stuff, we rarely get to see actual named characters clash, because it's just not, it's kind of the idea of like, oh, well, they're always going to walk away from each other. Like one of them, they can't die because they're still like relevant in the narrative and stuff. But because of that, we never really get to see it. Even though it's something that probably should happen very, very often, even if they both walk away, there could still be some really interesting exchanges and stuff. And there are some huge lore bombs dropped in this. But before I talk about the lore, because I just want to gush about the lore at the end of the video, I'm going to talk about the Total War relevant stuff first. That way we can like kind of have those sectioned off and like have them timestamped, so if people don't really give a shit about the lore portions, they can skip it. So for just to break down the Total War interesting stuff in here, we have confirmation of 2 legendary lords, which is Yuan Bo and the Changeling for Zinch. And then we also have confirmation for several new Grand Cathay units. The 3 that really caught my attention are the Onyx Crowmen. So the Onyx Crowmen get a substantial amount of story time in this, where we learn a lot about them, which I'm going to talk more about in the lore section. But it seems that they're either like immune to psychology, or at the very least causing fear. They also seem to have like some almost like stealthy elements, and they're more kind of like assassin type units, and maybe have the ability to mess with wizards in some way. But they have a lot of really, really cool story bits that we're going to break down. There is also some kind of new character unit. It seems to be like a gate guardian, but they're one of Yuan Bo. Yuan Bo has a general that appears in a part of the story that very much seems to focus on he's like a really melee centric guy. He's not the general. The general is a Shukengun, but there's a gate guardian who shows up and absolutely like curb stomps the people who have not been doing a good job protecting Nanli, which is where this city takes place. But the other thing, so we have is some kind of new melee character. I don't know if he's he might be a new lord, he might be a new hero, but either way, he's going to be super duper welcome. This like gate guardian guy. Because Cathay needs just like a solid melee character. You know, right now we have the Shukenguns, which are wizard lords, who I still think could use some more skills on their skill tree, because their skill tree is kind of thin. And then we also have the human general character, who's very support heavy. Like, he's a great support character, but you know, isn't really much of a melee fighter. He's just there to provide like a lot of buffs to your army. And then we have the Alchemist and the Astromancer, who are obviously hero wizards with some melee skill. So getting a full-on melee character who hopefully just beats the snot out of people would be very, very awesome. And then this looks like the confirmation of a brand new unit. This is definitely a new unit, which is the Zangu War Drum of Shangwu. So we have, granted, that one sounds like maybe a Regiment of Renown version. That one sounds like it's a little special because it's from a particular city. But we have these Zangu War Drums. Not really a lot of reveals on what the War Drum does, but it does something. So it seems that we've got the War Drums, the Zangu War Drum, the Onyx Crowman, a new melee character, and then Yuan Bo. So that already is a really, really awesome amount of confirmations. I would assume that's probably not everything. There's probably something else, but it just doesn't appear in the story. Tzeentch, we do see like some Tzeentchian fighting, but the Tzeentch army is described only very, very vaguely, and it just is like, oh, there's mortals and demons, and we really only see units that we already know about. Though we do see the Changeling turn into a number of different forms through the fight. So that's pretty much it for the Total War side of things. Is that, you know, Yuan Bo's here, he fights with the Changeling. The Changeling has infiltrated the city of Nanli as Miao Ying and seems to be really, really fucking with it and has set up like a massive cult. So it seems that the Changeling is going to be very cultist focused. I'm guessing he's going to be really, really big on kind of infiltrating cities and being able to really mess with them even while not owning them, which is going to be really, really cool. I'm really curious how they're going to work that out. He kind of, in some ways, he kind of sounds like what I was expecting Egrim von Horseman to be, but I also imagine Egrim would probably be very different about how he managed things. That'll be worth talking about once we actually have like a concrete idea of what we're looking at with the Changeling. But those are some pretty big confirmations. So kind of shifting back to this view where I can just chat lore wise. So the lore in this is fucking huge. We get some major lore bombs dropped in this. Like, this is one of my favorite things I've gotten to read in a long time, because just the sheer amount of lore that is stuffed into a small package is insane. So we get talk about the Monkey King, and have that the Monkey King is very, very busy in the mountains of heaven, and that him and Li Dao are squabbling and arguing about things and have been for a bit. It even mentions that the two of them have been squabbling since the beginning of time, which, like, hardcore frenemies seems to be the situation there. But one of the things I really like is that the Monkey King actually gets a couple of little, like, tidbits throughout this story, even though he doesn't appear. And probably my favorite thing that happens is that the Changeling very deliberately is kind of trying to piss off Yuan Bo. Like, he's trying to anger Yuan Bo enough to make like a poor decision. But Yuan Bo kind of notes that he is the only entity that can actually get under his scales. The only entity that can actually anger him, like piss him off enough that he loses his shit and starts like trying to hurt them, is the Monkey King. So like, the Monkey King is apparently so inventive and so clever with his insults and his proddings that even the very stoic Yuan Bo kind of loses his shit and is like, oh, I'm gonna fuck you up. Which I really, really love that. We also get confirmation of, oh, you know what? There might be another Cathay unit. We do learn that there are still monks confirmed in the setting. So we learned about the Wuxing monks. Granted, I can't tell if those are the same as the dragon monks from the old lore, who were said to be like these amazingly skilled combatants that fought unarmed, but could like easily kill a man with their bare fists, because they were like, you know, they're the kung fu trope, like taken to its Warhammer Extreme. Could be who they are, the Wuxing monks, but Wuxing is also like, the Wuxing War Compass or the Wuxing Compass. It's a very, 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 very important place. So they could just be like kind of regular monks, not necessarily Kung Fu monks. But as far as the overall story goes, probably the most major situation that goes down as far as like the lore goes is not only do we get to see Yuan Bo and learn a lot about Yuan Bo, like we get to learn a lot about his personality, we get to learn a lot about his role. So he seems by far the most powerful wizard among the dragon children. Like, it seems like spell casting wise, he is the strongest. And it also seems that in many ways, he is the most politically powerful of the dragon children. Because before this short story came out, we knew Yuan Bo very much as the Grand Administrator. So he was in charge. He's in charge of like writing up all of the edicts for the for Grand Cathay in the Celestial Dragon Emperor's name. So like he wields the Celestial Dragon Emperor's authority and is able to pass down edicts onto Grand Cathay in the name of Wei Jin, the capital and the Celestial City. And arguing with him is unwise. But, he was often kind of portrayed as the weakest of the dragon children, because it's like, oh, he's the Grand Administrator, he's the bookie, he's the guy that writes up all the laws, but he holds court in Central Cathay. But the thing is that he actually controls 2 provinces, not just 1. So all of the other dragon children control a singular province. Li Dao controls the southern provinces, Yin Yin controls the eastern provinces, Zhao Ming controls the western provinces, and Miao Ying controls the northern provinces, and obviously that includes the Great Bastion. Whereas Yuan Bo controls the central provinces, and he controls the celestial province of like Wei Jin in the Celestial City, so the capital. So he's in charge of all of that. So not only does he control more territory than his siblings, but he controls the capital, which is significant. He also is the one that passes the laws and speaks with the authority of the Celestial Dragon Emperor, which is huge. But in this story, it's revealed he has another role, which is that he is the Celestial Dragon Emperor's executioner. So his job is, if he does go out, he is mercilessly supposed to absolutely put down and obliterate anyone who potentially gets in the way of the Celestial Dragon Emperor and anything like that, which is absolutely wild. So, he goes out and just butchers people. So he has a pretty significant amount of hats that he wears. And the story, I think, also does a good job of showing that magically he's insanely powerful. The other thing that's really interesting about him, which does, I suppose, matter in a Total War sense, is that he seems to have magic items. There's a lot of focus on his armor and his weapon. So he has a magic weapon that is called the Dragon's Fang, which is that big 2-handed sword that he carries around with him. I would assume, because it's called the Dragon's Fang, that it is made from a dragon's fang. It is likely either his fang or his father's fang, which is pretty awesome. And then as far as his armor goes, I don't think they officially title it, but there is a lot of focus on his armor because he seems to have a bunch of magical gems set into the belt and also some other spots on it. But yeah, very, very interesting. So back to lore stuff. One of the things that is super fucking exciting in this story is that the Changeling actually turns into another new dragon child. So far we have known 6 of the 9. So obviously we know the 5 that are still alive and running around, Yuan Bo, the Jade Dragon, Miao Ying, the Storm Dragon, Zhao Ming, the Iron Dragon, Li Dao, the Fire Dragon, and Yin Yin, the Sea Dragon. But then, thanks to the Total War Warhammer 3 story campaign, the Realm of Chaos campaign, we learned about oh my gosh, I cannot remember her name all of a sudden, but her name skips my brain. But the Light Dragon, we learned quite a bit about her, a lot about her. We even like kind of get some art that shows what she looks like, though not fully, though her dragon form, not her human form. And then in this story, the Changeling full on turns into the spirit dragon, Shiyama. So Shiyama, that is a huge lore drop. And apparently Shiyama is exactly what we thought. It's exactly what has kind of been like hidden out in the lore. Shiyama is dead. Shiyama, the spirit dragon, is the dragon of death. Apparently she died a crazy long time ago, and her body and her essence is contained beneath the river, the Dragon River, which is up by Weijin. So the Dragon River goes from the capital of Weijin all the way out to the Jade Sea, and the Dragon River is an incredibly powerful river that is so heavily saturated with the elemental wind of spirit, also known as Shaiish, the wind of death, that you can't cross it. No one can cross it. If you try and sail across it, your spirit is literally ripped out of your body and dragged down into the depths. So it is impossible to cross, which makes it a pretty powerful border. Granted, it seems that the Celestial Dragon Emperor does have to kind of pour some of his own essence through the Wuxing Compass in Weijin, or in the Celestial City, into the Dragon River in order to make sure that its magic is powerful enough to maintain that effect. But we've known that the Spirit Dragon slumbers beneath it, but we did not know her name or what she looked like. And in the story, it is full on revealed what she looks like. And she has like a really, really awesome design. She wears like a porcelain mask that has a yin and yang design to it. And she looks like the way the Changeling turns into her, it seems that he's kind of mocking her underwater corpse, where her hair is like floating in the air as if she's underwater, and she kind of like, she has light. The way the light interacts with her body is the way light kind of like strangely interacts with you when you're underwater. Like the thing that's really crazy is that her hair is said that each strand of her hair is a different color and a different length, which is kind of wild. And then she has cold blue dead eyes. But we learn a couple of really important things. Shiyama, the spirit dragon, is the first. She is the first daughter. So she is and based on what Yuan Bo says, she seems to be the very first child. So she is the firstborn child of the Celestial Emperor and the Moon Empress, but then it goes on to state that she dies because she's slain. So she is killed by something before Yuan Bo and the rest of his siblings were even born, which is wild. So she wasn't that old. And we do not know the specifics of how old any of the dragon children are exactly. Like it seems very strongly implied that the celestial dragon children were at least, if not all of them, were born before the coming of chaos. So they were born when like the old ones still roamed the earth, and the Celestial Dragon Emperor and the Moon Empress were kind of like getting to know the tribes of humans. But that's not 100% confirmed. Like we cannot say that for certain. It could be that they were born after that war. But in any event, at some point, Shiyama was born the first, and between her birth and the birth of the second of the dragon children, she's killed by something. Now, I will say that kind of makes me think that Shiyama was born after the Great Cataclysm, because the Celestial Dragon Emperor is, if I recall correctly, I believe it's said that he does not unite the human tribes until after the old ones leave or are destroyed. So I think the Great Cataclysm happens, and then the Celestial Dragon Emperor and the Moon Empress unite the human tribes in the old one's absence that live in what we now know as Cathay. But I'm not 100% sure on that. I'll have to see if I can find some sources that give some specific information one way or the other. But if it happened after the Great Cataclysm, that would mean that Shyama was almost assuredly killed by demons. That she was probably the first truly major casualty for Grand Cathay during that war, which could go on to explain why Grand Cathay became so obsessed with building the Great Bastion, sealing chaos away behind that giant wall so that they can never be such a force, such a threat ever again, and can never result in the death of one of the children. But this would be huge because it would mean that, by my estimation, that there are probably 2 dragon children are dead. Because now we know 7 of them. One of them for sure is Shinzu. That's the light dragon. Shinzu, the light dragon, is missing as of fairly recently in the timeline. So Shinzu is missing. Shyama has been dead for thousands of years. And then there's only 2 left. The shadow dragon and the multicolored dragon. What I assume became a chaos dragon child. I have a personal fan theory that I feel there's a lot of evidence backing up that the final child, though where they are in the birth order we don't know, because I believe that Zhao Ming is the youngest, but I believe the undivided child, the child that wasn't associated with any one of the 8 winds but was the 9th, I kind of suspect that child fell to chaos and became Flame Fang, who was like a big terrifying chaos dragon that fell to Tzeentch and ended up later being killed by Archaon, because that Flame Fang had the Eye of Shirian, which Archaon needed in order to become Archaon. And that was like a huge epic battle. That was probably one of the most difficult challenges Archaon had to overcome, was defeating Flame Fang. But in any event, yeah, so this is huge and super fucking awesome. And we learned a lot of really cool other things. Like, we learned that supposedly at the bottom of the Dragon River, the Shyama is dead. Like, she's not conscious. She's said to be slumbering, but she's just dead. But her spirit seems to still be there. So she kind of seems to be acting like a relic priest of the Slann, where even though she has died, it seems very much that her spirit is bound to her body, or is bound to the bottom of the Dragon River somehow, and has not gone into the ether. Instead, it's grounded in the physical plane. And we also learned that supposedly she draws all the souls of the dead, all dead Cathayans, to her in the depths of the Dragon River, which has huge implications lore-wise. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, go check out my lore video on the nature of the soul, which talks about like what happens to people's souls when they die and stuff like that. The fact that Cathay has set up a situation where the dead of Cathay do not go into the ether. Instead, they are drawn to the Dragon River and seemingly kept there under some sort of like government, you could say, that's called the 10 Courts of Shyish. So the 10 Courts of Death. So the 10 Courts of Shyish are said to be somewhere in the depths of the Dragon River, and they are under the stewardship of the ancestral monks. But obviously we have no idea what the ancestral monks are. Are they like, are they revenants? Are they spirits that like take care of the dead and ensure that the dead, live in a proper afterlife? Or are they like living individuals that somehow are able to attend to Shyama's form in her body and make sure that she's properly enshrined and cared for, so that she can continue to be this, she can continue to maintain the underworld? Because Shyama is basically functioning as a death god. She is functionally acting as a god, in that she is drawing the dead to her and is doing something with them. I would highly think that Shyama is either feeding on the spirits of the dead in order to kind of maintain herself, though she may not be doing this consciously. It may be being done to her, kind of like the Emperor from 40k, where like the ancestral monks might be using the spirits of dead Cathayans to keep her going, spiritually at least. Or it could be that her spirit, the power that is still bound to her, just like a relic priest, is that underworld. She is functionally the underworld. Her spirit, her body, her mind forms the underworld that all of these other spirits are able to inhabit, which allows them to be used by Grand Cathay. You know, if you wield the lore of Yin, you're able to summon ancestral spirits. And those ancestral spirits are not like, they're not fake. They are actual ancestor spirits drawn from the spirit dragon, because when you cast that spell, you literally see the spirit dragon manifest as part of the spell, or a piece of her essence at least, and it spins around and opens a gateway that this unit of ghost guys come through, and those are your actual ancestors coming to fight alongside you, which is insane and like super duper badass and awesome. So yeah, like absolutely crazy. The story is a ton of fun. We get to see a just obscene amount of badass scenes. We get to see the Changeling and Yuan Bo talk shit to one another. We get to see a lot more kind of really fun little cultural things about Grand Cathay. We also, the Onyx Crowmen getting further expanded on makes me very, very happy. Because the Onyx Crowmen were kind of a weird situation. As far as like, the Onyx Crowmen originate from the Tarmacon book, is the first time I remember them being brought up. Tarmacon, there's a whole big fight scene where the one of Tarmacon's generals, Sile the Faithless, ends up breaking off a big part of the army that's mostly made of beastmen and the tribesmen loyal to him, and he attacks Grand Cathay. Oh, that's weird. He ends up going after Grand Cathay and tries to take, I can't remember the name of it, but there's a settlement that's right inside the Mountains of Morn that's still part of Grand Cathay, next to Zhaoming, the Tower of Ashrain, Tower of Ash something, Asher, the Tower of Asher. That is where the attack happens. So that's where a big part of Tarmacon's horde, led by Sile the Faithless, fights Grand Cathay, and that actually informed a lot of the Grand Cathay we ended up getting in game. But one of the weirdest things is the Onyx Crowmen, who, granted, do appear fairly different in that story. In that story, they seem to be more like flying... they almost seem to be like flying statues that are made of onyx, like the stone, as opposed to like actual creatures. Whereas in this story, they have been more heavily adjusted. They are elemental spirits. So they are elemental spirits of the lore of Yin. So the lore of Yin is the combination of, it's the combination of the lore of beasts, shadow, death, and, oh gosh, I forget what the last one is. Though I know it's in the short story because they flat out explain what they are, which I actually really appreciate. Hold on, I'll find it. Page 4, I think. Azure Heavens. Okay, yeah. So they're amber. Oh no, it's amber, iron, amethyst, and azure. Huh. Okay, so it's beasts. It's beasts, metal, death, and heavens. Thought it was shadow, but I guess shadow is a Yang lore? Really? Huh. Weird. All right, anyway. I should have known that, but I don't know why I'm so surprised. Anywho, so we learn a lot about them, which is really cool. So first of all, they're elemental spirits. They are not true flesh and blood, and they are terrifying in the story because they inhabit the elemental winds that make up the lore of Yin. So if you are not attuned to the lore of Yin, you cannot see them and you cannot hear them. They seem to be kind of like functionally invisible, and like the sounds that they make, which are actually very loud, can seemingly only be heard either by one another or by entities that are able to see them. Obviously in Total War, they're not going to be invisible like this, I presume, and it seems a lot of their invisibility seems more to, because the way they inhabit the winds, people are compelled not to look at them instead of just like looking at them and not seeing anything. It seems more like the winds of magic cause people to ignore them by like just happening to look a different direction. But they're super duper fun creatures, and they're revealed to be Fengshi Bo, which are conjured from the elemental winds by they're conjured by shadow weavers. Okay, so they are made of shadow. Okay, I was gonna say it's like they're so shadowy and they seem like so Olgu focused. So that's interesting. So it's like they're made by shadow weavers using non-shadow. Anyway, they're fun. I cannot wait to see them in game. The art that we have of them, they are fucking terrifying looking because they're literally just like very giant crow men that have human hands on the end of their wings, and they carry like a bunch of knives and stuff, but they also have talons. So they're pretty nightmarish, to be honest. But very, very glad to kind of see them explored. I'm also glad that they're so Fengshi Bo are they're more like spirits. They are not statues, and they're not naturally occurring creatures that live in Grand Cathay. Instead, they are kind of elemental embodiments of the Moon Empress. We also note that apparently, from a lore standpoint, Yuan Bo is the only one who, at least in his mind, is trusted with enough authority by the Moon Empress to control the Crowmen. So it seems that Miao Ying and Zhao Ming would not be able to control the Onyx Crowmen. Part of me feels like that's not entirely true. I bet I feel like Zhao Ming would be able to, because it's noted that he is the favored child of the Moon Empress. But we can see here that Yuan Bo does seem to have a very balanced relationship with his parents, where like Miao Ying is the most favored of the Dragon Emperor, the Celestial Dragon Emperor, so she is given the most difficult job, because he would, as Yuan Bo kind of mockingly says, though I don't think it's truly mocking, I think he's being kind of genuine, though there does seem to be a little bit of a jab behind it, that she is trusted with a role that that the Celestial Dragon Emperor would trust no one else with. Like, he would not trust Yuan Bo with defending the Great Bastion. He would not trust anyone with defending the Great Bastion other than Miao Ying, even though it's kind of a thankless job. But she is said to be the favored daughter. And then Zhao Ming, who is by far the least favored and is believed by all of the other dragon children to be going kind of batshit insane over in the West, is said to be doted on and the most beloved of his mother, which is why he's able to get away with a lot of shit. Because Yuan Bo, you know, he makes all the edicts, and Yuan Bo seems to very strongly enforce what he can. As far as, like, when it comes to the winds of magic, Yuan Bo believes that humans are only fit to wield the Wind of Heavens. Like, they are only fit to learn the Wind of Heavens as part of the Celestial Court, and that is the only wind that they should be permitted to wield. Only Shukengun are allowed to learn all the other lores of magic. Whereas it seems that there's something I want to check while I'm talking, so forgive me if there's random Total War noises in the background, because there's something that is now on my mind I want to check. But Yuan Bo seems to be balanced between yin and yang, right? Where it's like Zhao Ming seems to be very, very kind of almost yin heavy, and he's able to get away with alchemists. That's where I was going with that. Like alchemists who wield the wind of heaven, or wind of metal. Yeah, shut up. That is not allowed within Grand Cathay. Like, a human wielding the lore of metal is a forbidden art. It is not allowed under the Celestial Court. Now, granted, for Total War, you know, we kind of hand-wave a lot of stuff in order to give ourselves more breathing room and just to let people have fun. But it's like, if you were playing a lore-accurate playthrough, you actually probably would not see alchemists anywhere outside of Zhao Ming's forces, because to do so would risk the wrath of Yuan Bo. But Yuan Bo presumably is not able to bring down his full wrath on his brother because mom kind of protects him. Which I think is actually really fun and super duper interesting. Once again, ignore the sounds in the background. Oh, here, I can do this so y'all don't actually hear the sounds in the background. But I am super duper 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 pleased with the story. I think I'm honestly going to want to do a kind of a lore stream here probably today where we're just going to chat about everything. No, okay, I was right. The lore of Shadow. Okay, so David Guymer, I love David Guymer, but he actually screwed up. He actually messed up in the short story. Okay, good. I'm not crazy. So the lore of Yin is made by metal, death, beasts, and shadows. He said Azur, which is heavens, which is not correct. It should be shadow or Ulgu. The lore of Yang is made by heavens, life, fire, and whichever the other one is, light. So there you go. I was right. But that's okay. Little mistakes happen. So anyway, that's going to be it for this video. I'm probably going to be hopping on stream here in just a few minutes to just like ramble and have fun with this, but very, very excited to for this story. Let me know what y'all think down below. Are you more excited for the lore implications? Are you more excited for the Total War stuff? Are you happy that Shadows of Change is finally coming? You know, hopefully this means that Shadows of Change isn't too far away, but honestly, I don't care how long the wait is. I feel very confident we're getting into August now, and I'm very, very excited. It seems that they're putting a lot of love and passion into this as far as like the characters and the units and stuff. And this is gonna be the first time we've ever seen 3 legendary lords. So like, where does the Kislevite character mix into this? Like, we kind of see the Changeling and Yuan Bo are fighting, though we don't know when this story takes place. Presumably this is modern times, but it could be this was a long time ago. Hard to say, because you know, both of those two are ancient as fuck. I still feel pretty confident it's going to be Mother Ostankya, but I'm curious if there's going to be a narrative winding the 3 of these together, or if they're just going to kind of be doing their own things. We'll have to see. But in any event, let me know what y'all think down below. Very excited for this. Talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.